miss a video from the Aesthetic Clinics and Dr. Debraj show.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here for our course right in the beginning and at the start of the day. I'm a very atypical ophthalmologist. I got into ophthalmology to get into oculoplasty, facial plastic surgery, and facial cosmetic surgery. And it has been a long, diverse, different sort of a ride for the past 15 years. Financial disclosures are in place. I'm a faculty for Asia Pacific for Allergan Medical Institute, a faculty for MERS, which makes the other sort of fillers called Belotero, and a faculty at Aptos, which makes all the facial threads. We all understand that when people look at each other, when they are actually looking at beauty, you're actually looking at people when they are not looking at you. Therefore, the way people look on a profile view or the way people look at a 45-degree view is sometimes even more important than the way people look when they are looking at you up front. And when you look at a beautiful woman, especially at a 45 degrees, the OG curve is what you see, which is a S-shaped curve, which consists of a concavity below the eyes, then a convexity, then a concavity again, and so on and so forth. Unless we know what is youth, unless we know what is beauty, how do we create that in our aging patients? In my opinion, everybody is an aesthetic patient. As people are going ahead and becoming more and more aware, I think the days are past when we could have done either a dacryocysto-rhinostomy or we could have done an orbitotomy and left people with scars which remind them of the trauma of surgery throughout their lives. Now, when we look at facial aging, what exactly is aging? Aging is Mother Gravity being ever so kind and pulling all of us downwards and medially all the time. So if downwards and medial movement of the facial tissues is aging, then upwards and lateral would be anti-aging. Now, obviously, as we go ahead and age, there are a lot of things which are happening. The bone structure is reducing and your soft tissue mass is increasing. So in some sense, your face is beginning to resemble a bed, which is becoming smaller, and a bed sheet which is becoming too large for the bed, resulting in the bed sheet accumulating in all the other parts of the face and leading to loss of definition. Typically, when we look at people, we see that initially there's a certain amount of fat superficial and a certain amount of fat deep. I just want to say one thing. Would request everyone to put their names and numbers in. There are some peer-reviewed articles that we want to send across to you. Instead of printing 100 pages, we just thought we'll send it to you on WhatsApp. So as we go ahead and age, especially in women with post-menopause, estrogen levels start to drop. And as estrogen levels start to drop, the facial fat gets redistributed. So it's not as if it's increasing, it's just getting redistributed. And as it becomes more and more redistributed, you start seeing the lines and then the folds as everything starts to slide and things become older and not as elastic as before. Another interesting theory is, this is Lambros' theory, which is basically that the skull is essentially rotating forwards as we age. So what's happening is that your forehead is coming forwards and your cheeks are going back, the cheekbones, the maxillary and the zygomatic bones. Think of your face like a tent. If your face is a tent, the prongs of the tent are going backwards all the time. And so the cloth of the tent is continually sinking. So then pray tell me why we are going ahead and removing tissue whenever we see loose tissue. We used to do facelifts, remove tissue. See blepharoplasty, remove tissue. But the tissue is not becoming excess. So why are we going ahead and making people look like caricatures of their old self? Now, the other interesting thing that we found was that all this while India was getting ahead in facial aesthetics and facial cosmetic surgery, no one knew how Indians age. Isn't that bizarre? We are going ahead and treating people based on what the Caucasians tell us and how they are treating people in their population. Do we look like the whites? Do we necessarily age like them? And if we don't, then why didn't we have papers which actually went ahead and told us how Indians age? So this is India's first aging study, which we did and which has now been published in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, which is the flagship journal of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. This particular study was a photographic documentation of how people age. So look at how people begin to age. Look at her at 23 and look at how her cervicomental angle is nice and tight, and look at how her neck appears taut. But look at the same lady at 37, look at the width of the face, and look at her at 71 and then at 76. You can see that the upper face does not get impacted that much in Indians because we have melanin in our skin. It's actually the lower face and the neck which really get impacted. And unless we know this, what's going to happen is we are going to take syringes of fillers and keep pushing fillers into people's faces with the idea that we are making them pretty. Many of our patients come in and say, TV pe itne log, why do they look so funny? And they look so funny because they are overfilled. And the reason they are overfilled is because we are being taught mainly by Caucasian trainers who are teaching us to overfill faces, but Indian faces actually become larger as we age. Look at this lady again, 20, 34, 45, 51, and you're beginning to get the gist. So if she came back and she said, I want to look 25 again, you know what you had to do. Similarly, 40, 75, 86 for the man, and you're beginning to see certain patterns in here develop, and you're beginning to understand what I'm saying, that the mid face and the lower face are the main problem areas along with the neck. So therefore, your combination treatments have to hit these parts, because if you don't hit those parts, you will not look younger. This is an exceptional paper by Lumpel, which is relevant even today, almost 15 years after it was first published. This classifies the nasolabial fold severity, and this is something that we use daily in our clinical practice. So let's go to patients now. Let's go ahead and figure out what type of patients we see. This is a 30-year-old lady. She came in after consulting multiple oculoplastic surgeons and multiple plastic surgeons. She looks pretty. When she walked in, I said, what do you need? You look beautiful. So when she came in, she's like, the thing is that there's a difference between my right and my left eyes. And if you look carefully, you see there's an inferior scleral show on the right side, which is not there on the left side. There's an eyebrow which is raised on the right side as well. When she smiles, this becomes worse. The left eye becomes even smaller. And obviously you understand, with her profession being that of a model coordinator, you understand that this must be, when exposed to a high definition camera, causing a significant heartache. But my question is, everyone till then had suggested, let's go ahead and do a lateral tarsal strip. Let's go ahead and raise the upper eyelid as well. Am I a good ptosis surgeon? Am I a good enough ptosis surgeon to correct 0.5 millimeters of ptosis? Is the question that I would ask myself. The third question that I would ask myself is, am I good enough to correct 0.5 millimeter of ptosis repeatedly and predictably? Because if we are not able to give predictable results in aesthetics, 1% risk is 1% too many. These are normal people who want to look super normal. So we said, okay, fine, let's do something out of the box. Let's do a little bit of Botox in the under eye area. Let's do a little bit of fillers out here. Fillers will last about 15 to 18 months. Botox will last every 3. Let's try it once. Let's see if you're happy. This is how she looks immediately after. So this is when she's smiling now. So she went from here to there and ended up being completely happy. She's been on follow-up now for the past 5 years. And guess what? We charged her 1/5 that of surgery. So if we had to follow the Hippocrates oath and say, above all, do no harm, were we justified in suggesting surgery to her? Moving on, 46-year-old lady, been on follow-up now for the past 12 years, and I swear to God, she looks better after these 12 years than she did at 46, which is her photograph now. She came in as a CEO, and she wants to know, can I look fresher? That's her question. Can I look less sad? That's her question. Can I look less angry? So the lines on your face create perceptions of how you're looking. Now those perceptions, I always tell people, we treat the face, but actually we impact the brain. So therefore, it's very, very important not to take these things lightly. And when she's smiling, you see there are a few dynamic lines as well. I'm not going to go into the details. My colleagues have done a wonderful job, but a little bit of Botox and a little bit of fillers, and this was 10 years ago when the quality of the fillers was not that good, but a little bit of Botox and a little bit of fillers, and she looks much more pleasant. Does she look much more younger? And she, over a period of time, just like regular exercise makes you get fitter every day, regular Botox and fillers will also make you look younger in every day. So she's actually been anti-aging through as she ages chronologically. In light faces like this, when we have a nasolabial fold, it becomes easy to just put a little bit of filler. This is just post the filler. This will hydrate, it will become better. But in heavy faces like this lady from Bahrain, if you think of the face topographically, just like Dr. Kasturi was talking, you have a mountain above the valley. And because the mountain is coming down, you have the valley. So unless you get the mountain to go up, the valley won't disappear, and therefore using fillers which are very heavy fillers which are at the periphery of the face, you're recreating the prongs of the tent to pull the skin up, and then using a mild filler in the center of the face, you can give her much more pleasant results. The facial thread lift is a very important part of who we are, and the facial thread lift actually goes ahead and raises the tissues of the skin really well. This is an office-based procedure performed in the doctor's clinic after Prilocaine gel has been applied to the face. You can go ahead and see that the threads are like barbed wires. These are inserted below the skin. These engage the fat bags and pull the face up and give a result which will essentially last 2 years plus. In heavy faces like this, you will need to use threads, because by using threads you will be able to raise the heaviness of the fold, that is displace the mountain, so the valley can be filled, and she looks much better here. That's post carbon dioxide laser as well, our workhorse laser for skin rejuvenation. In people who came in like this, and she came in and she said, I look very harsh, I look very masculine, people say. Can you make me look a little bit more feminine? But masculinity or femininity is all about facial shapes, and you can go ahead and actually change the facial shape in order to make people look much better. Everything won't be treated via Botox and fillers, unfortunately. And that's why we are surgeons. And the mid-face lift, which was taught to me by my preceptor in Utah through the transconjunctival route initially, later I learned the intraoral route, and it's through the superior gingival sulcus that you can provide great results. So here you're making an incision through the superior gingival sulcus, you're raising the malar fat bags, you're taking 2,0-proline sutures through this fat bag, you're tunneling it up above the zygomatic arch and coming up through an incision which is just behind the hairline. And the moment you do that, you see that the left side of the face is already higher than the right side of the face, simply because the fat has been repositioned upwards. And when you go ahead and apply traction on it, you can see that the face is being tied. This suture will get tied to the deep temporal fascia out here. Takes about 45 minutes, and the patient will be fine for about 5 years at least after this. Some patients come in and they have multiple treatments which are needed, like this 64-year-old lady who wanted to look young enough so that her grandson could take her to school and not feel ashamed of her. Now, I'm not sure that should be the particular statement that should be used, but yes, if she wants to look younger and if she wants to look more rejuvenated, that's possible for us to do. A combination of upper and lower eyelid blepharoplasty, mid-face lift, carbon dioxide laser, 6 weeks later, she looks like a different person. Similarly, in this particular gentleman who's also 65. When we have very heavy faces, we go ahead and also perform fat liposuction from the lower part of the face. So essentially you're taking the fat from the lower part of the face in a Luer-Lock syringe and transposing it to the upper part of the face. So you're actually repositioning the fat just like you would in a young patient. So this patient came in, she was 42, she had a very heavy face. But after this particular procedure, you can actually change the contours of the face, lengthen the chin, and make her look much better. Similarly, this 48-year-old lady who came in from Palestine wanting her self-esteem back, as she said, you can actually make her look like her own daughter by procedures which can make her look younger, more rested, more rejuvenated, etc. As we've gone ahead and developed facial aesthetics in this country, we've also gone ahead and realized that our faces age differently and many of us get facial widening. Now, the development of a squarish jawline, which tends to occur with us, makes especially the female faces not respect the golden ratio. The golden ratio, as you would know, is called phi, and I encourage you to read more about it. So this is because, of course, one of the elements of the thickness of the lower face is the masseters, which is the muscle out here coming from the pre-stone era when we needed to actually chew nuts, etc. with our teeth. This is actually the strongest muscle of the human body. But you don't need such strong masseters now, and so you can actually go ahead and use Botox to reduce the size of the masseters. Just look at the difference in the faces between these two ladies 24 weeks apart. So look at how round she was and how oval she's become. Now, Botox for masseters has been used ad infinitum, but no one knew what dose to use and no one had done a long enough study on it. We studied this for 4 years. This is the largest study ever conducted for Botox on masseter hypertrophy, and it's my, even though Allergan did not support this, and this is completely investigator initiated, but it's my pleasure to tell you that Allergan is actually applying to the US FDA for an approval on what used to be an off-label indication of botulinum toxin usage for masseter hypertrophy using our paper and citing our articles. So if you see this particular paper, you see that the results of Botox for masseter hypertrophy are almost permanent. The size of the masseter reduces by almost 40-45% on each side, and this can last even 4 years plus, provided you've done 3 sessions. Non-surgical rhinoplasty is something that we are moving it at a large pace. This was one of our first patients many years ago. At that time, we used to be petrified of the nose because there are so many vessels in the nose. There's a cannula which is being used, and you can actually fill from both the lower part as well as the upper part. At that time, we were very limited. We thought that fillers can only be used in thin noses because it would add volume. But remember, fillers are all about optical illusion. If you can fit fillers appropriately, you can make even thick fillers appear thin. Look at this particular lady and look at how the nasal bridge has changed post the fillers. And look at how the orientation of her nostrils has changed just with the fillers. Believe me, we would get these sort of results only with surgery earlier. We also use threads for the nose. Initially, when we started talking of threads for the nose and utilizing some of these thread procedures, people, especially in the United States, thought we were crazy. But this time, I've been invited to Miami Cosmetic Surgery to speak about this particular procedure itself. And basically, using threads in the nose can lead to the nose getting pulled up significantly. Look at how the alar base has become thinner. Look at how the nose has become much more conical. And these are almost surgery-like results. But guess what? It doesn't have the unpredictability which is associated with rhinoplasty surgeries, even in the best of hands. We might be great surgeons, but the fact of the matter is we need to understand that the patient is bigger than our ego. So if we can go ahead and give results which are so good with zero risk, why not do that? There are certain nasal humps which come in, which can be fillered away as well. And my last patient before I go is about this lady who's a model and an actress in Mumbai. Look at how when she smiles, the tip of the nose droops. But the moment we've used fillers and threads, look at how the nose becomes completely different even when she's smiling. And these are surgical results in a non-surgical manner. So as you can see, fillers have been growing, facial aesthetics has been growing, facial cosmetic surgery has been growing, and as this field grows on and as our skills become better and as technology becomes better, I envisage a situation where surgeries will start to become obsolete probably a few years later and used only for the worst kind of tumors, etc., for which we will then go ahead still have to find aesthetic solutions. I thank you for your kind attention and a very patient hearing. We'd be happy to take any questions. Do you want a mic? Can someone hand over a mic? Can I?
There's no mic. No mic.
Ma'am, you can just speak up.
How to decide where you want to do the fat translocation versus where you want to do facial threads?
Fat translocation, you mean fat injections?
Yeah, the one where you actually removed a little bit of fat and placed it over the upper face. So where do you decide that? Which patient to do which?
How do you decide what phaco power to use in which nucleus? It happens with experience. Basically, when we treat disease, we are treating patterns. And when you treat certain patterns repetitively in your mind, you start understanding what will work in certain patterns and what will not work in certain patterns. But generally, we go with fillers. Obviously, generally, the idea is to go with fillers, especially after we've got the Althera, which is a high-intensity focused ultrasound, which goes ahead and removes the fat just like that. You don't need to really remove the fat and transpose it somewhere else. With fat, you can get very unpredictable results.